Hey everyone, welcome back to the course. Today we're going to be looking at part 3 of the book, The Art of Becoming a Successful and Wealthy Educator in China. Part 3 is I would say, the most important section because what it looks at and what we talk about and discuss in part 3 is how to be successful in the classroom. And being successful in the classroom can really make or break a teacher. I mean, key here to building wealth or building, anything you want to build, quality has to come first. You have to do an excellent job. You have to inspire and motivate people to invest in you and support your development. So it's key that you do a good job. Now, there are a couple of things we're going to talk about today that you should be aware of, especially if you're coming over here in terms of the culture. Culture is very different in terms of what's considered to be good teaching in China, in the East, and then what's considered to be good teaching in the West or in several other different cultural contexts. So it's important that you are aware of what those differences are so that when you come across some of these issues that you're able to respond to them very effectively. What I'll do today to also help with this process is I've invited a colleague to come and to be interviewed, a local colleague, who will share some insight in terms of the things that she's seen, because she's worked in leadership roles in education here in China, and she's worked with expats as well. So she's later on in the course, you'll watch her video and she'll provide some insight in terms of things that she's seen and from her perspective. Today I'm going to give you my perspective as an educator in China, and again I'm just going to summarize some of the key sections in the book, but you'll have to read for more detail. One of the things I start out with in the book is saying that teachers have relatively high status or status in China in comparison with other cultures. The teacher is highly regarded. Parents really respect the teacher's word. The teachers have the final say in terms of giving feedback and making suggestions on how students should improve. And parents, in my observation, for the most part, 99% of parents tend to follow the teacher's instruction to a T. There are challenges these days for educational reform here in China, so that people these days are looking for more Western style, but I would say Western style education. There's a move towards developing students' 21st century skills, so skills like collaboration, problem solving, creativity, and so on. But by and large, the environment here, the teaching and learning environment, is mostly based on rote memorization, drilling, and extra practice activities. But that said, for expat teachers, there is, especially in international schools, a push to have teachers focus on those key 21st century skills, on getting students engaged in inquiry, getting students engaged in talking about philosophy, and developing students other skills rather than core academic skills, although those are also equally important in international schools. So one of the things by now, if you haven't already, go ahead and if you aren't a certified teacher, go ahead and sign up. There'll be some links coming up soon in the course where you can go, and also down in the description here today, where you can go and download information about getting a teaching credential. That's going to help you develop as a professional, because you get key information. You'll get training and feedback from professional teachers in terms of how to improve your practice, and improving your practice is very important. One of the things I say in the book, the key question students always think when the students come into a classroom, no matter what age is, how is what I'm learning useful for me in my current situation? So this is something the teacher needs to think about as well. So whenever you're structuring a lesson, and there are a variety of different lessons and teaching patterns and strategies, one of the things you have to say to yourself is, how can I structure this lesson so that students are applying what they learn to their real lives? Or how is it that, because it's not always possible, it's not always practical. In the case that where it's not practical, how can the students use this information in their future or in their lives, and how will I make them aware of that? How will I make them aware of what they're doing today is going to benefit them either currently or in the near future or the long-term future? Where are the connections, okay? Also, how can you, another question that good educators always think about is how can you contextualize the learning experience? In other words, how can you take what the students have learned or what they are learning and apply it to their daily lives? Another thing in the book I talk about plants needing water, but not all plants thrive in places where there's too much or too little water. Some plants thrive in places where there's too little water, and giving them excessive water kills them. Okay, and then there are plants where the opposite is true, and so we should think in the same way about our students as well. That our students are in some ways like plants, in that they the environments where they can thrive will vary. So some students may thrive in classrooms where they can engage with others and where they can speak in front of others and communicate ideas. Some students may be successful in classrooms where they can express themselves artistically, and then there are other students who will be just fine in traditional classrooms where mostly the teacher is talking. So the key thing, the successful teacher tries to provide multiple environments for students to be successful, and also deliver these environments dynamically throughout the class, so that students get exposed to different learning styles and learning techniques, and also where the teacher can assess and see which learning style or which learning environment works best for which students, and that's worthy of further reflection and improvement. Well, another thing I say in the book is that, again, I'm not going to go through all the points, but a couple of key points. Teaching is an art. When you're in the classroom, just know that it's the primary purpose is to focus on a course objective or course aim and deliver that. But the other thing, the hidden bit, is that you have to actually connect with the people you're teaching, and that connection that you form is very important. And it's important that you form that connection as soon as possible. It's important that you form rapport. Now, of course, with different age groups, there are different ways of forming rapport with students. For example, with junior high school students, maybe in the beginning of class, rather than just say, okay, here's the lesson objective, here's the lesson aim, I might have a brain teaser or something on the board to engage them and then spark a discussion. That discussion would then give them the motivation to want to learn the key content in the lesson. So different age groups have different ways of establishing rapport, but establishing rapport is essential. It is essential, and there's an art behind it. I mean, after you've done it so much, after you've taught so much, immediately you walk into a classroom, you can look at the students, you can see, okay, I've got this kind of classroom. The majority of learners in this class are kinesthetic learners, they're tactile learners, they like to use manipulatives and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to plan a course for their needs, or I'm going to adapt this course because I've just observed that these students are like this. These students just came in, it's been a long day, they're taking the lesson after lunch, they're very sleepy, they're very tired. Right, I originally had this lesson plan, but now I'm going to adapt it because the children look more low energy, so I'm going to have them do some activities where they get to move around a little bit. Okay, so this is what I mean when I say teaching is an art. After you've observed various types of teaching conditions and scenarios, then you start to plan for those scenarios, and you can do it instantaneously, and you can respond to the students. And this is a key thing, I think, between novice teachers and professional teachers. You see, novice teachers, they'll get the lesson plan and they'll want to go from A to Z. So they plan A all the way to Z, and they'll try to go through step by step, which is important in the beginning, of course, until a teacher becomes comfortable with the teaching environment and comfortable with just the flow of the lesson, the timing and so on. Yeah, I would definitely recommend going through the lesson plans. Exactly. But as you become more and more professional, you start to see that certain different types of variations and in the classroom that affect the dynamic, and these variations happen, instantaneously sometimes, and so the teacher must be ready to respond to those and plan for, and that said, plan for being thrown off course a little bit, or plan for students not being engaged or not being very energetic, and have activities backed up to use in those different scenarios. So this is very important. Another thing I said is that having environments that are interactive, where students can communicate with each other. This is something I talk about in the textbook. In the book. Having environments where students can share ideas with each other, or use technology, move around the classroom. These types of things are very important. And of course, in this unit, I also talk about having environments where you can work with the Chinese teacher, communicating with the local teachers to learn about culture, teaching techniques, going to observe them. That's very important to see how they teach in this cultural context, and then having a conversation with those teachers about why they've made the decisions they made. This can help you to become a very professional teacher. Again, we talk about feedback. The role of feedback is very important. When you give feedback to students, make sure that you give feedback in a proactive way. So one of the things I do is I use the sandwich approach. Start with something positive about what progress the student has made. I then talk about areas where the student needs to improve, and then I finish off with something positive. We call this a sandwich approach, and it protects the confidence of the child, and also it gives the child direction, and it helps children to understand that you're giving feedback to support them. It's not, oftentimes students may perceive excessive feedback as bullying or being critical. But using the sandwich approach helps them to see that there are things about their behavior or things about their academic performance that you value as a teacher. And that's very important as well for establishing rapport with students. And another key point that I talk about is student interest. Student interest comes first. It comes first. So when you are organizing your first week of class with students, one of the things you might do is do a needs analysis. So find out who the students are, what are their names, where they're from, what are their hobbies, what do they like, and gather as much information as you can about the students, and use that information to plan for lessons. Use that information to think about how you can best support students. For example, how can you incorporate their interests into the classroom? Also, how can you use their interest to support or extend their learning as well? This is something that you want to think about. Okay, so these are some of the key points. There are other key points, but just read through part 3. And I would say read it at least 2 or 3 times, because the things in there are just very rich in terms of the experience that I had here and how I was able to build the current system as well as training centers that I have today. All right, everyone, so like the video, comment down below what you'd like to see next. If you're watching this video online through YouTube, hit the subscribe button and subscribe. If you're watching this video on Udemy, please go on to the next lecture. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.